In Chapter 1, Lord Marlowe awakens from his 6-year fugue state aboard the Pharaoh, haunted by memories of betrayal and past battles. Dr. Okoye tends to him as he regains awareness. Commodore Basander Lynn reveals tensions within their mercenary group, the Meidua Red Company, questioning the loyalty of their soldiers and the mission's direction. Despite Lynn's reservations, Lord Marlowe insists on leading an away mission to contact Samir, a connection to the elusive arms dealer known as the Painted Man. As Lord Marlowe prepares, he reflects on the devastation wrought by the alien Cielcin and his desperate hope to prevent further destruction. In Chapter 2, Hadrian Marlowe visits the frozen cubiculum aboard the Balmung, housing Cielcin prisoners, including their leader Tanarin, suspended in stasis. He reflects on their mission and ongoing tensions with Commodore Basander Lynn and Valka Andera, who doubts the mission's purpose. Valka expresses frustration over restrictions on studying the Cielcin, but softens when Hadrian reveals a lead from Krim on locating an extrasolarian contact. Hadrian reunites with Jinan Ajar, his captain and lover, who reassures him of their mission's importance despite doubts. Their bond provides Hadrian a brief respite from the mounting pressures of their prolonged and uncertain journey. In Chapter 3, Hadrian Marlowe leads a team to Arslan, a makeshift city built from grounded starships after the Cielcin invasion. The city, chaotic and decayed, reflects the desperation of its people. Lieutenant Karim Garona, Krim, guides the team to Samir, an intermediary for the Painted Man. In a tense meeting at a drug den, Samir reluctantly agrees to connect them with his shadowy contact. Despite Samir's distrust of Hadrian's noble origins, he acknowledges the group's resources and potential as clients. The chapter deepens the stakes, highlighting the precarious alliances and dangers surrounding their search for advanced weaponry. In Chapter 4, Hadrian Marlowe meets the Painted Man, an unsettling homunculus arms dealer in a Nipponese-style tea house in Arslan. The Painted Man, veiled in menace, refuses Hadrian's request for the location of Orgassos, revealing that the planet is hidden and accessible only by its mysterious master. Tensions escalate as the Painted Man accuses Hadrian of being an imperial spy. The confrontation turns violent when Gen and his soldiers launch a surprise attack. In the ensuing chaos, the Painted Man reveals its terrifying influence over the crowd, leaving Hadrian shaken as he confronts the unnerving reality of his adversary's power. In Chapter 5, Hadrian and his team are ambushed by machine-human hybrids, or daimons, controlled by the Painted Man. Despite their shields and weapons, Hadrian's group is overwhelmed by the seemingly endless thralls. Gen heroically defends the team but is ultimately killed. Amid the chaos, Hadrian realizes the Painted Man's terrifying abilities as it disguises itself as a member of his own team. The Painted Man stuns Hadrian and mocks him, revealing its mastery over deception and control. The chapter ends with Hadrian incapacitated, at the mercy of the sinister homunculus. In Chapter 6, Hadrian awakens in the Painted Man's mobile office, disoriented and temporarily paralyzed from a stunner blast. The Painted Man gloats, revealing its shape-shifting abilities and mocking Hadrian's perceived failures, particularly Gen's death. Despite the psychological manipulation, Hadrian recovers his mobility and deduces they are aboard a private cable car. Using his superior strength in Rustum's lower gravity, Hadrian incapacitates the Painted Man with a meteorite and kills it by smashing its head with a heavy crate. Equipping himself with his stolen gear and the homunculus's terminal, Hadrian escapes the cable car, leaping into the bustling cityscape below. In Chapter 7, Hadrian struggles to navigate the sprawling city of Arslan after escaping the Painted Man's mobile office. Without a terminal or clear direction, he reflects on loss, guilt, and survival. Using a comm booth, he contacts Jinan, learning his team, except Gen, survived and escaped. Jinan finds Hadrian at a small cafe, bringing his coat and offering solace. They share a tender moment, affirming their bond. As they leave together, Hadrian is haunted by grief for Gen, but draws strength from Jinan's presence. The chapter underscores resilience, love, and the burden of loss amid the harsh realities of their world. In Chapter 8, tensions rise among the Meidua Red Company's leaders following their failed mission on Rustum. Basander Lynn insists they abandon their pursuit of Orgassos and regroup with the Imperial fleet, citing strategic orders and heavy losses. Ottavia Corvo refuses to risk her ship, while Hadrian argues for continuing their search, believing it the key to ending the war. He unveils the Painted Man's terminal, potentially holding critical information. The group debates fiercely, with Jinan siding with caution, straining her bond with